What's up, everybody? My name is Big Cam and welcome back to another Comically Boston breakdown episode. And today we are talking about the 2-episode premiere of Daredevil Born Again that came out last night on Disney+. Boy, oh boy, am I excited. This show is so epic, and just off of the first 15 minutes alone, they break your soul, and then but you see where they're going, and it honestly, if you didn't watch the Netflix Daredevil, it's, you could probably figure out what's going on, but if you did watch the Netflix Daredevil, it, hurts your soul how much you care about these characters, and it's only the first couple seconds of seeing them on screen together, and you're like, oh, I love this, we're back, baby, Daredevil is back. And we are back better than ever, and breakdowns for this show over the next couple weeks for the 9 episodes of Daredevil Season 1, I believe, shall be coming out on Wednesdays the day after the show comes out. And I hope you guys join me. And also, if you want a recap and summary of what happened in the Netflix Daredevil show, Season 1 breakdown is already out on the channel, and Season 2 and 3 will be coming very soon, probably over the weekend as we head towards next week's episode 3 of Daredevil Born Again. But this came out on March 4th and aired at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. on the East Coast where I'm at, 9 p.m. Coastal Time in Colombia, 11 p.m. in Brazil time, 2 a.m. in UK time, 3 a.m. Germany, 4 a.m. South Africa, 7:30 a.m. for India, 11 a.m. for Japan, and 1 p.m. for Australia. Very crazy how different the time works when these shit comes out. Like, Australia's like, oh, 1 in the afternoon, time for a new Daredevil. Like, what? The poor Germany, UK is like 3 in the morning, alright. Which is like pretty much like our midnight release is when it comes out on the midnight Pacific time, it's 3 a.m. West Coast, which would be what, noon for UK, Germany? I don't know. But very good show. Starts right off the bat. We got this fantastic poster of their new intro that's marbly and blood stripping off of, kind of inspired from the old Netflix intro, but taking their own route in creating something new that's their own. And I really like where they're going. The Devil's work is never done. And we start this episode titled Heaven's Half Hour. And this episode is 1 hour and 1 minute. We open on the Marvel Television logo as we hear a choir voice, as in an angelic tone. But we see Nelson, Murdock, and Paige closing up shop and leaving their little law firm. And they have the sign, Nelson, Murdock, and Paige, paying off Foggy's note written on the napkin that Nelson, Murdock, and Paige will be together. And I love that we finally got to see them together, and I hate them for what they're about to do. But let's get into it. Matt, Foggy, and Karen walk down the street, and they're going to a retirement party for an Officer Cherry at Josie's bar. And Karen says, we could get out of here if you want. And Matt's like, I think that would violate the friend code. So as much as us people that want to see Matt and Karen back together and in love, it's looking like they're maybe gonna stick to being friends, and then maybe after what happens, maybe not friends at all. Who knows? Another officer asks Officer Cherry, why are you quitting? And he's like, it's not quitting, it's retiring. But Officer Cherry says, with White Tiger and Daredevil out there, they are the future, and cops are obsolete. Already starting to paint this rift between vigilantes and the cops that goes back into the Daredevil series on Netflix. In Josie, runner of Josie's bar, toasts to Officer Cherry at his retirement party and say, may you be in heaven a full half hour before the devil knows you're dead. Daredevil? And that's the title of this episode, is probably where that comes from, that little toast there for Officer Cherry. But Foggy is at the bar talking to a Kirsten McDuffie who works in the DA's office, and he takes shots with her, and Matt and Foggy are like, oh, Foggy, my boy. And she's like, oh, he cannot handle Kirsten McDuffie. And Matt's like, don't you friggin' hate on my boy Foggy, he got this. And it's actually quite cute. I'm like, oh, winning me over. I'm like, oh, Foggy's got this new girl, it's not Marcy, but hey, maybe little Foggy, little Kirsten McDuffie here. I would love to see this. But then Foggy gets a call from a guy named Benny, and he's worried and saying someone's in his house, and Foggy's like, he's on drugs, but you know, he was in trouble and threats were being made on his life, so I stashed him. And Matt's like, where'd you stash him? And he goes, at my apartment, you know, a couple blocks away. And Matt's like, all right, you guys stay here, I'll go check on it. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? I could have helped you protect him. And then Foggy's like, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I just didn't want to give you a reason. You know, a reason to, you know, get back into the Daredevil suit and go hit some people. And then we get Daredevil back in the game using his little baton things with hook grappling things to swing through the city like he's goddamn Spider-Man, but way cooler. I friggin', oh god, seeing Daredevil swing through the city, although it looked a touch CGI at times, it still looks really good. And the music playing as he did it, I was like, yes baby, we are back. But as Matt's swinging off of rooftops, Benny calls back Foggy, and Matt hears it, and he says to him, the guy was asking where you are, I'm sorry, and he hangs up. And then we hear Bullseye lining up the shot, and we hear the clicks of his gun as he's lining up the accuracy with the scope, and we see Foggy get shot. No, 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 no.
No, 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 no. Wait. Wait.
I can't believe they shot Foggy. And blood splatters all over Karen's face, and she's just sitting there holding his chest like, come on Foggy, don't die, don't die. And then as like Karen's standing there as Foggy gets shot, Bullseye shoots two other guys that come out of Josie's bar and then goes, hello Karen, which is I think a callback to season 3 of Daredevil, where Poindexter Bullseye here is wearing the Daredevil suit, and she goes, Matt? And he goes, hello Karen, right? And he's, I think, there to kill Karen. But at this moment, I don't know if he's here just to kill Foggy or kill Karen or just trying to get to Matt. I need to go rewatch season 3 of this and figure out why Bullseye might be here. You know, what happened to him at the end. I thought his back got refused, and then all of a sudden he's here shooting people. Like, Bullseye, what are you doing, dude? But right before he is about to shoot Karen, Matt swings in and kicks him through the window, and they start fighting as the, you know, smoke bombs that Bullseye threw are all filling out Josie's bar and people are going crazy. And Bullseye starts to kill civilians in the middle of this fight, right? Like in between Matt, you know, getting hit by Matt in Daredevil, he's throwing knives into civilians, killing civilians. And you're like, Jesus, this guy's crazy. And the whole time he's filling Matt with knives. Like Matt looks like, as Eric Voss says, I was watching the video last night, it made me die laughing. He's stuck with so many knives, and Eric Voss goes, he looks like a cactus. He's got a bunch of pointy, sticky things that are sharp out, pointing and sticking out of him. But yeah, as he cactifies Matt, stuck with a bunch of knives, which, you know, they could be stabbing him, but he also has the armor, so maybe it's not, you know, penetrating as deep as it might be, you know, if he didn't have the armor on. And the whole time that Matt's fighting Bullseye, he can hear Karen on the street saying, Foggy, stay with me, and hearing Foggy's heartbeat slowing. But they end up making their way up to the roof, and Bullseye kills more civilians in his wake as they're going upstairs, as he's filling Matt with knives. And then we get this great shot of them on the roof as Matt pounces up in a superhero stance behind him, and then throws the baton and knocks him out onto the ground and starts just really beating on him here. But then Matt hears Foggy's last heartbeat as Foggy just looks into Karen's eyes, just like, I'm dead, And honestly, this is the last we see of Foggy. I don't think he's dead. I mean, he is, but I don't want him to be dead. Like, my boy, no.
This is my boy! My boy!
And Matt screams out in pain, crying, why? And then, you know, it's finally fed up, and he just yeets and tosses Bullseye right off the roof, trying to kill him. But Bullseye takes a couple more breaths on the ground. He's not dead. He's gonna live from this. But this guy just got thrown from at least 4 or 5 floors up and just splat. In the way that the noise of him hitting the ground is so just like oddly satisfying, but also just, oh, like sickening, just thud. And then we get this great shot of Matt's cowl falling over Foggy's murder scene that we saw from the trailers, and Matt just cries on the rooftop as Officer Cherry makes his way up there and sees that Matt took off his cowl, and Matt's crying, and he's sitting there seeing Daredevil and goes, "Matt?" Right? Like, so now Officer Cherry knows Matt is Daredevil. And then we get the intro music, which is kind of similar to the Netflix Daredevil music, but it is their own take, and it's more of a marbly white versus the blood red of the Netflix one. So this is like white figures of marble, and you hear just like the slight cracks in the marble as the marble crumbles, and then the stones reform into Daredevil as Daredevil is born again. Ooh, I like the symbolism, I like the music, I like how just simple and elegant it is. It almost reminds me of like the intro to Shogun, if anyone watched that, as it was like sifting through rocks as like ships in like this rock garden as they were like combing rocks and stuff. I was like, peaceful, but the music's just like elegant. It's like, yeah, I couldn't skip this even if I wanted to. We then cut like Avengers Endgame, and it just says 1 year later. So it's been a year since Foggy's death, and we open on sad Matt. And he's very sad and alone. He's listening to music just in his penthouse apartment, though. What? He upgraded? Okay. And he's listening to sad music, and we see that he carries in Foggy's in loving memory card on him every single day, which, you know, just is Matt keeping a piece of Foggy with him at all times. I was like, oh, the Catholic sad choir boy, like, oh, poor Matt is just devastated by his best friend dying, and it's fundamentally changed him, really, as a person, as a man. And honestly, without Foggy in this series, it might not feel the same. And honestly, to me, it's going to hurt the series in a total whole if Foggy is truly dead and gone. How they would bring him back, I have no idea. But, you know, Foggy's been shot before, though. He had been hurt, you know, and he had survived, but not this one. This one, it looked like a shot right to the heart, so doubt it. We then get a parallel cut over to Fisk starting his day as he eats breakfast, as the camera flips upside down and we see a shot of New York behind Fisk. And then we see Vanessa has been the queen pin in running Fisk's business while he's been away, and she's negotiating with tracksuits and Russians in 3 other families. So this is a big meeting with 5 families, and she's making them all fall in line under her, and they listen. Everyone's like, yep, okay, whatever you say. And so she's very good at being the boss. And all of a sudden, the garage door behind her opens, and we just hear Fisk's big, heavy feet walk up and go, "Vanessa," and his hand kind of twitches, and everyone in the room just clears out. And she's like, really? Really? Like, you just end a meeting with 5 families by simply standing in the doorway? And I think this pisses her off a little bit. Like, yo, listen, I've been the one in charge, and I have the power here, and you just show up and just disrespect me by saying, oh, I have all the power here, actually. But, you know, in all fairness, Vanessa wouldn't be in the situation and the power she has if not for Kingpin, right? Like in Wilson, things happen, though. Wilson hasn't been around and with his Vanessa for a long time. We saw him in Hawkeye, we saw him in Echo. Vanessa wasn't there, so now he's back and he's trying to rekindle his relationship with Vanessa, and of course he still loves her. But he tells her that he has gotten his 25,000 signatures and it is time. Time for what? But we find out it is time for him to run for mayor. Ooh. We then cut to a reporter going around interviewing New Yorkers, and this reporter is a B.B. Urich, Ben Urich's niece. And we know Ben Urich from season 1 of Netflix's Daredevil, and Ben Urich was a phenomenal character. And she seems to be following in his footsteps, no doubt, and she's interviewing somebody and asks them about the crimes in the city, and someone says Daredevil hasn't been around in a long time and we need him back. Hell yeah, we needed Daredevil back. So excited that we get to see Charlie Cox and everybody again in this new Marvel version of this show. It's so epic. We then see that Matt has been working with the girl that Foggy was flirting at the bar with that night when he passed. And Kirsten McDuffie and Matt are now MURDOCK and McDuffie. So she left the DA, and Matt and her have been working together. And Karen, he hasn't talked to, he says, as Matt has to go and be on the witness stand for Foggy's murder trial for Ben Poindexter. And we see that Bullseye gets 11 counts of murder because he killed 11 civilians that night, as well as Foggy being one of those 11. And he gets life in prison to serve those 11 counts consecutively with no possibility of parole. And Karen and Matt celebrate, but I don't know, I have a feeling he'll get out and Bullseye will be trouble in season 2 or maybe later in this season 1. I don't know. I think they're trying to shift the focus back towards Matt and Kingpin, but also then have like a White Tiger in there. Maybe the White Tiger brings out Frank Castle, the Punisher, brings out Daredevil back, you know. And then we also got the Muse, maybe season 1's focusing on him more. I don't know. But we do know season 2 is starting to film already, so that's exciting. But after the trial, Karen and Matt talk out in like the lobby area on a bench, and they haven't been talking, and they have a little argument fight, and they can't even have a conversation anymore. And she says she's been in San Francisco, which is kind of interesting. West Coast Avengers, Shang-Chi, you know, maybe Karen shows up in those type of things over on the West Coast. Very cool. Maybe she shows up in Wonder Man coming out in December. Maybe. But she also says she's sorry and that she's glad that he's doing good. And he's like, yeah, so good. And Matt says, I refuse to believe a tragedy had to destroy everything. And she goes, but it did. And Karen says, what are you going to do about Daredevil? He says, I promised myself I'd put it behind me and let the system handle it. And she goes, you really think that's going to help? And he goes, I don't know, but it doesn't hurt. And she leaves, but says she found this at Josie's bar and thought you might want to have it. Take care of yourself, Matt. And she gives him the Daredevil horn that got chopped off of the helmet that we saw in that falling cowl shot. And oh, I was like, oh no. So she found that horn and gave it to him. And then he starts carrying it around for the next 2 episodes. You're like, oh, he still loves Karen so much. But he also is like, you know, holding this Daredevil close to the chest. You know what I mean? We then cut back to Matt at his new penthouse apartment, and he is cooking in the dark and chopping very fast because now without him daredeviling, it seems he has lots of time to do things like cook. But then he hears on the news that Fisk is running for mayor, and Matt's like, son of a bitch, he's back. And lets his dinner burn, set off the smoke detectors. But then we see Wilson Fisk's new campaign team, and Michael Gandolfini is playing a Daniel Blake. Now, I don't know what this character will be throughout the series, but as we know of him at the current moment, he's like a little enthusiastic pro-Fisk kid, you know, but we know Michael Gandolfini is James Gandolfini's son, Tony Soprano's son, and James Gandolfini has passed, rest in peace to a legend. And the show kind of has some Sopranos vibes, oddly, but love to see Michael Gandolfini getting some work and working alongside of a legend like Vincent D'Onofrio and working in New York. Like, feels very right to see him working in New York, and especially coming off of the Many Saints of Newark, where he was playing Tony Soprano, like a young Tony Soprano, like good actor. So I'm glad to see him getting some work, and I think his character is going to be a bigger part than we think throughout this series. And Fisk asks him, would you vote for me? And he says, yeah, I would vote for you. You got shit done for yourself, and now you'll get it done for us. And I mean, Mayor Fisk, that's the coolest thing ever. And Fisk isn't sure if he likes him or not, but he's cheap and enthusiastic, so oh well. Matt back at his office talking to Kirsten, and she sets up hey, I have a meeting for a client. Would you go meet her? She's a Dr. Helen Glenn. She's a really good therapist. And Matt's like, sure, I'll go meet her. And as he's walking down the street, he's hearing everybody talking about Mayor Fisk as mayor, and it's all over the front page and big news, and oh god, he's, you know, just can't get away from hearing Fisk's name everywhere he goes. But he goes to meet Heather, and Kristen set them up on a date. It wasn't a client meeting at all. And she told Heather it was a therapist meeting. And Matt's like, you know, oh god, that's so annoying and pissed. And she's like, okay, you want me to get your cup of coffee to go? He's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. I'm just annoyed at her, and I'm going to kill her. And she's like, please do. But they end up kind of hitting it off. He can hear her Queen's accent still in her. And she's like, bullshit. But, you know, gets her smiling. And I like this for Matt, actually. They're both New Yorkers. They're both from New York. She kind of gets him more than maybe anyone else would as a New Yorker, but doesn't know he's Daredevil, you know, doesn't know that past of things. But I like her for him, and I like Matt for her, you know, I like them together. I think this is good for Matt. And then Matt goes back to his office and tells Kirsten, that was unprofessional and rude, and I hate you, but, you know, send me her number. I need to text her to apologize for your inappropriate behavior. And she's like, oh, by the way, your hatchet man is here. And Matt's like, he's an investigator. And we see that he has hired Officer Cherry from the beginning of the episode, and he's been, you know, doing some investigating for Matt and Murdock and McDuffie, the law firm. And Officer Cherry gives Matt the rundown on Fisk and what's the deal with him. And half the cops in the city love him, and half the cops in the city hate him, but he is bulletproof, like Vanessa said he was, and that, you know, he's squeaky clean, and he couldn't find any real dirt on him and see if his criminal goings are still going on, which they are, but under Vanessa, and they're bulletproof. And Matt says to Cherry, well, it kind of sounds like Fisk is sincere, and maybe he actually will help the city. And he's like, are you hearing yourself? And he goes, I know, but, you know, I gotta go see for myself. And we also see then the Bigg report, as Bigg is asking New Yorkers about Fisk, and Fisk is proposing a treatment for vigilantes in the city. And we see, like, on the news, he's talking against his other, you know, opponent, and he's like, yeah, you're weak. He goes, I'm proposing not to celebrate vigilantes, but to have a treatment for them. So, you know, if vigilantes are caught in the city under Fisk, no good, right? Like, the cops will reign, and vigilantes are gonna have no say in the city under Fisk as mayor. Matt goes to talk to Fisk face to face and ask him if he will go and talk to him at the diner. And they go and have that chat at the diner that we saw in the trailers for Daredevil Born Again, and this is actually the same diner that Matt and Elektra eat at in season 2, and I was like, yeah, dude, this diner comes back, I really love it. I'm pretty sure Karen and Ben Urich eat at the same diner in season 1 as well. But as they're sitting here having their great conversation, it's really great, but it's all from the trailer, so most people have seen it already. But it's even better and deeper and thicker in the show. Matt tells him, you've lost some weight, gained some muscle, you're lighter in your step. And he's like, I'm not going to spar with you, Murdock. He goes, no, I'm not saying that. And Fisk says it's not entirely unpleasant to see him again. Yes, it's good to be back, baby. Woo! Oh, it's so great to see Fisk and Matt Murdock across the table from each other, you know, dissecting each other as their counterparts aren't Daredevil and Kingpin, but this is the street level versions of Wilson and Matt. Fisk references trying to mentor someone, and it ended in him getting shot in the face, and he chuckles about it. And, you know, he still has the scar from it, but we saw at the end of Hawkeye, Echo shoot Wilson Fisk in the face, and then we saw in Echo that Wilson Fisk, you know, was healing and somehow maybe has some type of super soldier serum, because, like, how do you heal from a shot to the eyeball, and now you have both eyes and you can see again? Like, I don't know. But Fisk has had a complicated path back to New York after dealing with Echo, and says no, he's done with mentoring people. I tried once and she shot him in the face. And he also says to Matt that it looks like he's come up in the world. And he also says that your other half tried to kill me in the past. And Matt's like, kill? No, never. Incarcerate, but no, never kill. And he's like, I wonder if your other half would agree. But Matt says, I left that part of me behind. And Fisk says, ah, yes, tragedy can change a man. Knowing all about the death of Mr. Nelson. And Matt says to him, now that the Kingpin is back. And Fisk says, no, I'm not. He's a different man now himself. And Fisk asks Matt, why did you give up being a vigilante? Matt says a line was crossed. And Fisk says, ah, yes. I heard you tried to kill Dex that night and threw him off the roof. It can be hard to deal with the darker side. And Matt says, if you say you've changed, great. I believe in redemption, but I also believe in retribution. And if you slip up and fall out of line, I will be there. And Fisk says, under him as mayor, vigilantes in silly costumes won't be running the city. And says if he finds out he's been back to his vigilante ways, that Fisk will come after him, and, you know, warns Matt. And Matt stands up and goes, ah, so we really do understand each other. And Fisk says, oh yes, I love a man that rises above himself. Good luck with that, Mr. Murdock. So Matt and Fisk know each other very well at this point, and button heads like two rams and two what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force, right? Like Daredevil, Batman, Joker, right? Like Daredevil, Fisk. It's perfect. These two need to be butting heads at all times. It just feels right. Matt then goes on a dinner date with Heather, and she says, you're a pretty shitty coffee date, but you're a great dinner date. So things seem to be going well here, and I'm like, okay, cool, good for Matt. But then Matt, as they're walking, hears on the TV that Fisk won his mayoral campaign, and people rush out into the city to celebrate or riot in the streets, and Matt lifts her out of the way as a big mob comes running around the corner, and he kind of like lifts her into safety and goes, oh, sorry, I fell. And she's like, okay, doesn't think anything of it, but clearly this blind man, I can't wait for her to find out that he's so much more than just the blind man that she knows. And as Fisk won, his team celebrates, but Vanessa is drinking champagne but walks away. Something's up with her. And Wilson goes out onto the rooftop, and she comes out to talk to him. And Fisk says to Vanessa that he knows about Atom. And she's like, oh, kind of deer in the headlights, like, you know about Adam? So she's been sleeping with somebody, and she says, don't kill him, is the first thing she says. And he's like, I'm not that man anymore. And she's like, promise me you won't. And he's like, I won't. So he promised her that he won't kill the man that was sleeping with his wife, which, I mean, like, I would kill him. Like, sleeping with my wife, I'm killing him, straight up. Even though Fisk wasn't there, but he's trying to win her back over. But people are going nuts in the streets, and Matt and Heather are out there walking around and watching all this, and Matt's like so disappointed and let down that Fisk won, and he's like, oh God. And she says, you can't carry the weight of the city on your shoulders. New York doesn't care, remember? And she kisses Matt, and he says, oh, this is not good. I hate when Kristen's right. Kirsten, same thing. But then we end on shots of Fisk on the news saying, tonight and every night, I love New York. And we see Kingpin graffiti getting painted on the wall. And it looks a lot like this art here as we see the two halves of Fisk getting painted in the Kingpin and Fisk and showing the different halves. And presumably getting painted by Muse here as Matt goes walking through the streets seeing the chaos, and we end on shots of Fisk looking down at the city and Matt looking up at it in the shots of like white and black as Fisk, and then the red shots of Matt, and it's the color grading, the moodiness, the music, the score. They got so much inspiration from the Netflix Daredevil, made it their own, but yet feels like that show, but better, and Marvel, and oh God, I love this show so much. And episode 2, let's just get right on into it. This episode 2 was titled Optics, and this is a 49-minute episode. And this episode opens on In Loving Memory of Camar de los Reyes. And this is the man who plays Hector Ayala, the White Tiger, and he sadly passed away in 2023 battling cancer. So I think this is his last role being White Tiger, and just from this one episode seeing him, it seems like he does a pretty good damn job, but we have yet to see him fully suit up as the White Tiger, other than like on a news screen. We open on Wilson Fisk giving a televised statement on New Year's Eve, and they don't tell us what year this is, and they show a shot of like Times Square, and you'd think that there would be 2020, and people with glasses that say 2027 or whatever year it is for them in the MCU, but they kind of avoid showing which year it is to lock them into a specific time. But in the MCU timeline, it's got to be anywhere from 2026 to 2028, after the 5-year time jump in Endgame and the 1-year time jump in this show. So we're not quite sure exactly when it's set, but I'm thinking it's somewhere in between 2026 and 2028. But that's a guess. But on the news, Fisk talks about this city doesn't need vigilantes, doesn't need a vigilante that is gun-toting and walks around with a skull on his chest, Frank Castle, or a guy that wears a spider suit, Spider-Man, or a guy who wears devil horns to save us. No, we don't need these people. So Fisk is also the Punisher's mayor and Spider-Man's mayor. And we know Frank Castle is showing up later this season. Should we expect to see Spider-Man? I mean, from dropping, I know for sure there's people that heard this line and are like, oh my God, Spider-Man could show up. And like, they're excited for the possibility that he might show up. But anyone that knows better and knows that Sony owns the rights, like, they can't have Spider-Man show up because of Sony. And it's like a real bummer because your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man just had Charlie Cox show up as Daredevil and voicing that character in that. And because it's animation and because they own Daredevil, they have all the rights to that. But because it's Spider-Man, they don't. And it's like, that sucks. Like, Tom Holland Spider-Man should have been able to show up in Daredevil here. And that would be really cool to see. Even if he just swings through, we see just a shot of Spider-Man swinging. Like, don't even need Tom Holland, just the stunt double. Like, I don't know. It would be cool to see at some point Daredevil and Spider-Man team up. And as Matt's at home listening to Wilson Fisk's speech, he can hear the city reacting to this. And a girl says, "This guy's the mayor, I can't believe this." And some other guy says, "What are you gonna do, move to Boston? You hate the Celtics." Which made me laugh really hard, being from Boston and knowing how much New Yorkers hate the Celtics. And vice versa, how much Boston people hate the Knicks and the Nets and the Yankees and every other goddamn thing in New York. Oh, God. I mean, I like New York, and the people in New York are fine. Spider-Man, you know. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, you know. But, like, fuck the Yankees, come on. The Mets. I mean, I'm from Boston. I'm going to be a Celtics, you know, maybe not Patriots anymore, but Celtics, Bruins, Red Sox for sure. For sure. Celtics mostly, but, you know, Red Sox, yeah. There's too much history there. David Ortiz, you know. But Matt, hearing Fisk being mayor, he's starting to itch and reach his boiling point. And he's like, he wants to come back as Daredevil. You can see it in his face. He's just like so angry, and he's got so much pent up anger inside of him that he needs to find a way to let this out. And the best way he used to let this out was by beating people with his fists. We then cut over to Hector Ayala, the White Tiger, walking down to the subway and seeing a guy getting jumped by two other guys, and stops this man from being jumped, and he fights these two guys and protects the man, and the man runs off, and as he dodges one of the man's punches, the guy falls right in front of an oncoming train and splatters blood all over Hector's face. And this is a brutal shot, but you're like, oh my God, these first two episodes both started with a murder. Like, Jesus Christ, is episode 3 gonna start with a murder as well? Is this what this is doing? This is the tone they're setting? Murder every episode? Like, God. But we then see that the guys that were jumping that guy were off-duty police officers, not in uniform. And you're like, what's with these guys? Are they dirty as hell? Probably. We then cut to the BB reporter. She's asking somebody, do you miss Daredevil? And some guy's like, nah, he's a clown. And she asks somebody else, do the strong need to protect the weak? And the guy goes, yeah, but then they get whiny about it and then they prey on the weak, which, you know, is a fair point. We then cut over to Fisk in his new mayor office, sitting at his new desk that he's all happy with himself sitting at. And, you know, finally a long line of history that Fisk has with trying to get to this desk. His father wanted to be the mayor and had political dreams, and Fisk has always kind of had political dreams himself because of his father, and now he is mayor of the city. And where's this leading to? We know we just had a President Red Hulk in Captain America Brave New World, and theoretically he's no longer the president, so who's going to be the new president? Maybe President Fisk? Imagine. Oh my God. I would lose it. I think we're better off having him as the big bad in New York, as all these Spider-Mans and Punishers and Daredevils try and fight him, and have, like, you know, New York centered battle, and then have stuff going on in San Francisco and in space and outside Wakanda and all over the place. Maybe even MIT and Boston with, you know, Spider-Man, the ending of Spider-Man, knowing that Ned and MJ are going to be at MIT. I don't know. I would love to see Spider-Man in Boston. That would really blow my mind. And we had a little bit of Wakanda Forever in Boston, which was cool. But, like, you know, seeing a Marvel movie shoot in Boston, that's so dope for me, because that doesn't happen all the time. Where New York, they're always shooting. But, you know, in the comics, everything's set in New York, and New York's a great little playground for these guys, and I understand. But, you know, crime happens in Boston, too. But so Fisk is telling his, you know, campaign manager, person, advisor that he hired to know the ins and outs of the politics in New York, and he's telling her about the history of this desk and the men that sat at it. And then he goes, okay, what do we got to do today? And she's like, you have meet and greets to do. And he's like, okay, can I push them? Do I have to do these? And she says, These first couple days are critical for optics, the title of today's episode, episode 2. And we see Matt is at the jail dealing with a DUI case and a client already, and hears a cop beating up on Hector in the questioning room. And Matt goes and hears this and is like, okay, I have to go represent this man, because Matt still is a lawyer, but he has the Daredevil hearing powers, so he's like, I gotta do the right thing ultimately. And Matt starts to question Hector about his side of the story, and can hear, with his hearing, that he's telling the truth or not. And, but says he wants to represent him. And he's like, I can't afford you. And he goes, don't worry about all that. I can, it's pro bono. I'm gonna represent you anyways. You're in good hands, Mr. Ayala. And Hector's like, wait, you're blind? And Matt's just kind of like, kinda, yeah. We then see Fisk in his car, and he's stuck in traffic, and they say that he's getting the key to Brooklyn. And he's like, all right, what the hell? Why are we waiting? So he just gets out of the car, and there's a big hole in the street, a big-ass pothole backing up everything. And he just gets out and goes to, where's the foreman? Yells at the foreman to come over and goes, you have the manpower and the equipment, fill this hole right now. And the guy's like, we're just waiting on permits. We can't, do anything until the permits are approved. And he's like, consider them approved. And then he's standing there as they start to work and fix this hole, and people start to film as they see their new mayor standing at a traffic junction at a giant pothole in the street. And it honestly almost looks like the same bridge from Spider-Man No Way Home, that bridge where Green Goblin was. So maybe that is a pumpkin bomb that blew up that hole. I don't know. But Fisk, as he's standing there, says, I said I would get things done in this city. Here I am, getting things done. And then he walks away with his, political advisor, and he's like, is that what you meant by optics? And she's like, yes, indeed. Back at MURDOCK in McDuffie, Kristen, whatever, is pissed Matt took on Hector as a client. She's like, I sent you down there for a DUI, and you come back with a cop murderers case? Jesus. And Matt says the improbable, impossible cases are the ones that they take. And she's like, God damn it, you're right. Okay. So Matt is going to represent Hector. We then see Matt ask Officer Cherry there to see what he can find about Hector, and that there's something that doesn't add up. And he's like, wait, the guy's innocent or something doesn't add up? And Matt's like, both. Just, figure out what you can find out, okay? And also see if you can find the guy that Hector saved on the train platform. He's like their only witness to that Hector was trying to help somebody there and not killing a cop in cold blood. But this is a very big case, as it looks like Matt is going up against the entire NYPD. And Matt says, Dracar Noir is the scent of NYPD's finest, which cracked me up. I was like, oh, okay. They all smell like a barbershop, okay. We then see that a Ben Hochberg represents the people of New York, and Kristen calls him the Hawk. A good lawyer and with a reputation, you know what I'm saying? And the judge immediately says, no bail, and Matt's like, doesn't even get a second to talk. He's like, Your Honor, and the judge is just like, yeah, no chance. But so this judge is like, oh, this guy is accused of killing a cop, no bail, fuck him. And it's like, you didn't even hear his side of anything, it's just not, it's a steep hurdle that Matt's going to have to climb here to prove that Hector's innocent, when it's he said, and, in a court of law, they're going to go with the cop on that, you know what I mean? But so the judge shuts down Matt, and Hector's like, in good hands, huh? Matt's like, everything's going to be all right, don't worry about it. We then cut over to seeing Michael Gandolfini's character, Daniel Blake, has been talking to Bibi Urick, and he has arranged for 5 minutes to get her with Fisk. And she gets to ask Fisk some questions, and we find out that she was named after her uncle, Ben Urick, who Wilson Fisk murdered by his own hands in season 1. I think it's like episode 11 or 12, the finale of that, like at the very end of that episode, murdered, right? So I think she's on his ass, really. Like, she's like, I think she might have an inkling that that Fisk was the one that killed her uncle. But so she asks him about Commissioner Gallo, who we'll meet later this episode, and she goes, every time I've asked Commissioner Gallo about you, she can't get a straight answer out of him. What's the deal with that? And she also heard that Gallo might resign, and if he loses the cops, he loses the city. And then she tries to ask one more final question about Mrs. Fisk, and he says, I'm all out of time. So she's on his ass. I am already in love with BB, and she must be protected, because if she gets killed by Fisk the same way that Ben Urich was killed, I will riot. More than I'm rioting for Foggy. Fucking how dare they kill Foggy. I am so upset. But Fisk believes that BB is used to being underestimated and that they can use that. We then cut over to Heather Glenn at a book signing, and her book is named Live Without Fear, a nod to the comics Man Without Fear, the Daredevil comic. A young man at the signing asks for a signature and says he's struggling, and asks if she's taking on any new clients, and she gives him his email. And this kid maybe is Muse? I mean, I don't think so, but just the way he looked, the shaggy hair, the bags under his eyes, the pale skin. This looks like an artist type. But he's also this young kid and seems to be struggling and looking for help. And, you know, he's not here for Heather Glenn because he knows Daredevil is Matt Murdock, right? Like, he's here because he needs help from the best therapist in the city type of thing. But then right after this, we also see that one of Fisk's guys gets a book signed and says, "Thank you very much." So then I'm sitting there going, wait, so Fisk knows about that Matt's with Heather? Is he keeping tabs on Matt's loved ones here? Like, what's going on? Why is Fisk guy here with Heather? Well, we find out later this episode. We then see Fisk goes to talk to Commissioner Gallo after the dead cop's funeral, and Gallo says, "I see right through you. I don't buy this mayor act, and I'm trying to make sure your term as mayor is as short as possible. See you around, Kingpin." Oh boy. Commissioner Gallo is in trouble. You don't talk to Kingpin like that. He will come after you. Kristen and Cherry then go over to talk to Hector's wife, and Cherry tries to find out any information he can dig up about Hector, and he ends up digging through their room and finding Hector's white tiger suit and amulet. And it's kind of like a necklace, and we find out later that this gives him powers, just like in the comics. But Hector's wife says he's not the man that she married, and, you know, maybe the white tiger changing him for the worse, or maybe, you know, she's just mad that he's out fighting crime every night instead of being at home with her, and I think he has kids, you know what I mean? Like, come on. We then cut over to Matt having a dinner date with Heather and asking about this and talking about this fantasy vacation to Belize. And Matt's like, okay, so what else are we doing on this fantasy? And I'm like, okay, but if they go to Belize, this is definitely the furthest Matt's ever been out of New York. I mean, previously he had said he'd never been out of New York. And then as far as we know, he's only been to LA once and hooked up with She-Hulk, right? And then came back. So I don't know. I don't know what Matt's traveling is like these days. But then Heather says to him, maybe later you'll get a taste. And he's like, can I get the check, please? Check? and he says so quick, and it's like, does he really just want to sleep with Heather that bad? Or has he not gotten any action in the year since Foggy's death? But as he's talking to Heather at this meeting, Cherry calls him to tell him what he found about Hector, and that he's the White Tiger. So Matt then goes to press Hector about being the White Tiger, and we hear from Hector that the amulet gives him strength and powers, but he wasn't wearing the outfit and the costume when he was fighting those guys the night of the crime, so it shouldn't matter. And Hector also says that, you know, he's got to be the one, someone's got to be the one go out there protecting the streets, and people are going missing and no one seems to care. And it's like, who's going missing? And Matt's like, listen, you look hurt. Are you all right? And he's like, yeah, I'm at Rikers Island, and it's no picnic. You know, equal opportunity beatings from guards and inmates alike. And he's like, I'll see what I can do to help you, but Jesus. We then see Commissioner Gallo comes in to resign, effective immediately, and, you know, kind of tells Fisk to go screw himself. And he's like, yeah, you'll need to find a new commissioner, and I won't be able to stay on to help the other guy in, so good luck. And, oh, by the way, a whole lot of cops you'll need as well, because most of them are leaving with him. And he goes to walk out, and Fisk is like, hey, you're originally from Philadelphia, right? Cheesesteaks are great in Philly. And the whole time Fisk is having a cheesesteak and taking this meeting on his lunch meeting, so disrespecting him in that sense already. But he lifts the paper, and we see, oh, his favorite spot, D'Angelo's, and lifts up this paper and reveals a photo of the commissioner's son and wife, presumably at their favorite local cheesecake spot that they go to near their house. And Commissioner Gallo is like, oh, fuck. And then Fisk offers him his terms. As far as the raise you would like for your police wagers, 0. Raise for overtime minimums, none. Expanded cadet classes, not happening. But what do you say? Do we have a deal there, Commissioner? And the Commissioner says, fine, I'll stay. But careful what you wish for. So the mayor and the Commissioner of Police are button heads. He's creating a powder keg, and the city's gonna explode at some point. One of Fisk's guys says, you played that well. And Fisk goes, my sandwich was terrible. It's like, you didn't have to eat the sandwich. We then cut over to Matt in the Hawk, the lawyer, talking to the judge in private. It seems that they have also found out that Hector is the White Tiger. And Matt gets the judge to not use the White Tiger or Hector's vigilantism against Hector in this case because he was not dressed at him as at the time of the crime. We then see the BB report is still active in the city, and a lady saying she's sick and tired of being afraid, and these people need a man without fear. We then see Matt by the water holding the little Daredevil horn that Karen gave him. So he's got, the piece of Daredevil with him from Karen, and he's got the little note for Foggy, so he's got his Nelson and Murdock and Paige with him at all times. Oh, heartbreaking. Cherry comes to Matt and says, hey, listen, I think your judgment might be clouded a little bit here because you're Daredevil and you're a vigilante and this guy's a vigilante and, that's why you're here. And Matt goes, you know then that I know that this guy is telling the truth. And Cherry's like, but you can't prove it. And he's kind of got a point. And he says that he likes the Matt Murdock he's gotten to know over the last year. And he's got himself out of the kitchen and he wears a normal suit. That guy's doing some good. And Matt, taps him on the shoulder and leaves. And Matt goes to follow the cop that was the other cop that didn't die, that was there the night of Hector's incident. And Heather calls and cancels dinner date with Matt, and she's got a new client, and we find out that her new client is Fisk and Vanessa, and they're doing couples counseling with Heather. So maybe he doesn't know that Heather and Matt are intertwined, but Heather is now taking on new clients. One of them might be a muse, and one of them might be Kingpin and Vanessa as a couple counseling type of thing. And so this is very much so like Sopranos. This is crazy. You got the Kingpin of the mob family having to do therapy with this great therapist. It's like, oh man, the vibes are Daredevil mixed with Sopranos. Like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. It's funny though that this is like Sopranos-esque and he's got to go see this therapist like Tony Soprano did. And then he's got Tony Soprano's son working for him. Like, meta, come on. I love that. But we hear Vanessa, as Heather asks her questions. Vanessa says being the Queenpin was very fulfilling but lonely when Fisk was away. And then when he came back, she didn't know how to feel about that. And then she asks Fisk, like, why is he here? And he says he doesn't want to lose his wife. So maybe he still loves her, but maybe she's falling out of love with him. Or maybe she just misses the ferocious Wilson, the Kingpin. Maybe she wants that back. Matt hears the cop get a call saying they found the guy that Hector saved. And he goes for his gun, so Matt rushes to save the guy that was the innocent civilian that Hector saved. And the cops aren't in uniform and dirty for sure. And one of them has a Punisher tattoo on his wrist as Matt gets the guy out the fire escape. But then he's standing in his apartment as these two cops, dirty cops, not in uniform, are coming after this guy. And these two cops beat the hell out of the blind lawyer. Like, they don't know this guy's Daredevil. They just beat the hell out of this lawyer that they know is going up against them. And just beat him mercilessly and then put a gun to his head. They're going to kill Matt. But right as they're about to shoot him, Matt snaps one of their arms and knocks the other one out, slamming their face into the floor. And we close as Matt's breath is heavy breathing and he picks up his broken glasses and just gives that primal Daredevil scream, almost like that Punisher, but more, more Daredevil scream. Wow, what an episode. As they close to the credits and we're like, wow. And Matt knows that, he's screaming because he knows that he's got that adrenaline again from breaking those guys and beating them. And he hasn't felt that in over a year. And just like a junkie, he's got that itch for that Daredevil itch again. And that's what that scream says. But the credits roll as Get Free by the Vines plays. And it's like, baby, what a episode. What a first 2 episode. This is going to be a longer 2 episode together video. But I think it's just 1 episode next week, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for all coming by, and if you'd like to watch the Netflix Season 1 breakdown, that is up on the channel already, and I'm working on Season 2 and Season 3 now. Hopefully we'll be out over the next weekend and over next week, so please check those out when they come out. If you'd like to support me and the channel, the best way to do that is by liking this video, subscribing if you're new, hitting that bell so you don't miss future videos, following my other social medias down in the description below, and please subscribe, like, comment. Really helps the channel get into the algorithm. And if you'd like to talk more Daredevil with me, comment down below, message me on my other social medias. Let's talk Daredevil Born Again. And Daredevil, I love this show, love the Netflix show, love the cast. It's all amazing, so I'm excited. I can't wait to talk more with next week about Daredevil Born Again with y'all. Comment below your predictions for this season. I'd love to hear them. Thank you guys so much. If you've made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you, and I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace.